Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yo, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We are broadcasting on the road this week. We are road tripping to Savannah, Georgia. We are at Coastal Empire Beer Company. And with me, as always, is my friend and sort of co-host, Brian Hewitt.
I'm sort of okay and sort of
yes.
Here. Hi, Tim. It's nice to see you.
How you doing, sir? Good to see you.
So joining us today, we have Chris Haborak. I hope I said that right. Or we're really joining him because we're
That's
in
right,
his
not
facility.
joining us.
Yeah.
We're, yes.
So we are in Savannah, Georgia's Coastal Empire Beer Company. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Hey, thank you for coming down and seeing us.
Yeah, we're glad to be here. We're having a good time checking out your town, checking out your beer scene. We're making the rounds. So.
Savannah is a great town.
It's good stuff, man.
Get into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Well, we're sipping a few of your beers right now, but I tell you one that I'm really enjoying is the Keller's Milk Stout.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about this beer?
Yeah, so it's a milk stout, and a lot of people call it like a brewer's beer because it's only 5.5%. A lot of the stouts are higher in gravity. We love the flavor profile from stouts. So what I did was bring it down to about 5.5%. It's got some roasted barley, oats, a little touch of honey malt in it, and really just a fantastic beer and one that you can sit around the campfire and drink several of.
Right. It's nice and balanced. Nothing is in your face in there. It's just got a good creaminess to it. Nice roasty stout.
Sure.
It's quite tasty, Brian.
Yeah, I had a taste of that. I have a tropical IPA. This was David Loves Jam Bands. Is that right?
That's correct. So actually, this is a beer that my brother came up with. It's 100% Pilsner malt bill, and then a lot of late additions with Mosaic and Azaka. And the name came from my brother actually teasing our sales guy, David. So one time David was here in the brewery, and he was playing some punk music. And Kevin looked at him and he goes, "Man, I didn't take you for punk, man. I thought you were a jam band guy." And he goes, "I hate jam bands." So Kevin goes, "I'm going to name a beer after you, and it's going to be David Loves Jam Bands."
Man, there's nothing like poking some good fun at somebody with stuff like that. That's great.
Throughout all of time, people will think he's really into jam bands.
Into jam bands, absolutely. And you know something we did totally crazy this week we gave Smalls a microphone.
Never smart move.
Right. So we'll see how this goes. We're going to test drive that this week and see how it goes.
I regret it already.
I mean, you let me drive you guys down here.
We did. And Smalls is a trooper. I have to say, she injured her leg, so she's been hobbling all around Savannah in a cast. So, which was actually part of the master plan because she's injured enough to get a temporary handicap tag. So it makes
I took
us
one for the team.
Getting in and out of the brewery is a lot easier.
I had no idea this was possible. It's pretty glorious thing.
Yeah, it's wonderful stuff. Absolutely. So Brian, a busy week for us already. Sure. Even though we're taping this because we're on the road, we're doing a little early. So normally our weekend would be recapped on the next week's show, but we're living it this week.
Yeah, we are living it.
We're
currently.
living it this week. So what'd you get into this week before we headed out to Savannah?
Boy, not a whole heck of a lot. Preparation for
Getting
this.
Ready for that.
For the most part, that's what it was.
Absolutely.
Yes.
We taped another show. We did that.
Yep.
But some of the stuff we've done already since we've been here, we did stopped at Eagle Creek Brewing on the way across. We did hit Moon River Brew Pub. We had a lot of fun last night.
Oh, yeah.
Touring there and looking for ghosts in the attic.
We got to go the whole way to the top, too.
We did. Chris, we frightened one of the servers there when we told him that they took us all the way to the top. He just kind of shook his head and looked stressed about it.
He couldn't even handle it.
He didn't like it at all. I guess that's the worst part, where the worst ghosts are.
I guess so. I have not yet been able to be up there, so you guys got a nice
how about
insider
that,
tour.
Man? We did all right.
They don't even really take the tours up there. We went up another level, and they were all, a little jealous, I think.
They were. We came down, and they locked a gate behind us, and people said, "Hey, can we go up there?" And they're like, "No, that's off limits. This is just a special." So we did. It was very nice of them to give us special access there.
And I think Sam found a ghost in some of his pictures.
So. Well, Sam spent the rest of the evening looking at his pictures to find the ghost, and I think he did find a couple.
One of them did look like the white lady.
Yes,
or
the white lady.
Yeah.
Google it. You'll find out the story.
Oddly pixelated somehow, even though real life wasn't pixelated like that.
She's the ghost of an 8-bit arcade character. That's why it was pixelated. And Two Tides. We stopped down at Two Tides Brewing, which has just a super cool tasting room. I guess it's an old house there that they've converted, and Lots of cool art on the walls and stuff. The brewery's downstairs, and the upper floor, I guess, is the tasting room, right?
It's like a refurbished house. A lot of pastel coastal theme things going on there, and man, that 6 foot IPA is delightful.
That was fantastic.
Yeah,
really, which is their flagship.
Beer. Yep.
That's a good beer. Chris, anything interesting, exciting happening for you this week?
This week we actually brewed, speaking of Moon River, we brewed a collaboration beer with them in the beginning of the week. Those guys came over and we brewed a Brute IPA that we're conditioned with spruce tips.
Oh my goodness!
See, Chris, I told you. I said he'd be excited about that one.
Will there be glitter in it?
No.
He's like, no,
lactose.
Nearly
Lactose.
perfect. Not gonna happen.
No lactose either.
Yeah.
All right, Tim. So, what are Truck and Tap's beers of the week?
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as always, we have lots of great beers. A couple we've talked about already. We're sipping the Keller's Milk Stout, and we're also getting into the David Loves Jam Bands, not punk. He's all about the jam bands, so we've been enjoying that. We also have some of the Rum Barrel Coco Pina Goza, and that's with rum barrels from Ghost Coast Distillery right here in Savannah. Is that
That's correct? Those guys are very gracious enough. They put the word out to all the Savannah breweries. They're like, hey, we got a few barrels opening up, and would anybody like them? So we thought it was a perfect match, a pina colada beer, add a little bit of rum, and we're very happy with the results.
It's cool to see, with more distilleries coming around. We're seeing a lot of the local Atlanta breweries are able to get barrels from the distilleries there. ASW is quite popular, and some of the other ones there.
Sure.
So it's cool to see the breweries and distilleries in the local areas being able to work together on that.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And, we get to promote each other and put out some really unique and fun stuff.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, Brian, what is happening this week's Craft Beer News?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
All right, so we have an update on the Omnipolo Yellow Belly story from last week, and I did a little looking around, and it turns out a lot of the speculation that was out there online was completely wrong. I mentioned a place in the U.S. that has the trademark for it in the U.S., and a place in Ireland. Wasn't either one of those. It's a place in the U.K. named Bateman's, and they have a golden ale called Yella Belly Gold, Y-E-L-L-A, and they have 6 years on that name, at least as far as I can tell from Untappd, so they got Omnipolo beat by like a year or so. But I kind of doubt that they could prove there was any sort of brand confusion over that, but that's something the courts have to decide. So as of now, there's no news as to whether Yellow Belly will be returning in another form in a different name. But speaking of Untappd, there's been a lot of amusing check-ins to that Yellow Belly. One of my favorites is, silly me, I somehow mistook this for 11% peanut butter stout, spelt differently. I guess I'm going to cease and desist drinking this to be safe.
It's probably for the best.
It's probably for the best. So, the U.S. patent owner, they said it was completely okay for Omnipolo to use it in the U.S. They said, go right ahead. We're cool with it. They've reached out to them directly, and Omnipolo's even mentioned that that's possible.
All right.
PBR fans can rejoice. Pabst and Miller Coors have come to a settlement. As we mentioned before, Miller Coors was basically going to stop brewing all of Pabst beers in 2020 when a contract expires, effectively putting Pabst out of business. Pabst sued, saying they were entitled to a contract extension that had been mentioned in the agreement. The terms of the settlement have not been disclosed, other than to say it's a long-term solution and that PBR will be on shelves for the foreseeable future. I think it's safe to say that Pabst is paying a little bit more to brew it than they were, but probably not as much as Miller Coors was asking.
Pure speculation, Brian.
On my part,
you can't
yes.
prove that.
I can't prove a bit of it, no.
Because they were tight-lipped about that for some reason, which it seems like the obvious solution here.
That's what it seems like, but somebody had to give some ground, and maybe they did wind up paying the full amount. And somebody's embarrassed by it and does not want anybody else to know. In news too zany to not report, Stella Artois created an automatic bartending robot. It's called BART, an acronym for Bartending Automated Robotic Technology, and calling it a robot might be overselling it a bit. It's basically a glorified serving tray on a platform that you mount on a Roomba. Okay. Pretty cool, huh? The ad for it is delightful. It holds 4 beers, 4 Stella glasses, and has a bowl for party snacks. Sells for $19.99, but it is sold out. But you can download 3D blueprints if you'd like to make your own.
I think we'll have to get one of those for the studio, right? You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break, but we'll be back very soon to talk with Chris from Coastal Empire Beer.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
We are Reformation Brewery, celebrating the reformer in you. Locally crafted within the renowned Etowah watershed of Woodstock, Georgia, Reformation creates yeast-forward brews full of aroma and flavor crafted to last. Come see us in beautiful Woodstock, Georgia, for a tour and tasting of unique brews that you can't find anywhere else. Reformation Brewery, set beer free. ReformationBrewery.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Next Friday is Hawaiian Shirt Day. So, if you want to, go ahead and wear a Hawaiian shirt and jeans.
Now, back to the Beer Guys radio show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys radio show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. We're talking with Chris Haborak from Coastal Empire.
Chris, thanks again for joining us, opening your brewery to us and sharing your beers. We do appreciate it.
Hey, glad to have you guys down.
Yeah, so
and
we're
gals.
Right. That's right. Smalls is
Yes,
what. How you doing over there,
thank you.
Becky?
Somebody recognized me.
That was nice.
Thank you.
Yes, good deal. So, Chris, we're sipping one that you actually made for the Strong Beer Fest, which is going on in Atlanta as we record this show. We're all here because we wanted to talk instead of going to the Strong Beer Festival.
I don't know what we were thinking.
I know, man. Jeez.
We all regretted it immediately.
We did, yes.
Exactly.
Worst decision we've ever made. Well, we could have met and talked at the Strong Beer Fest, right?
Exactly.
We could have done that.
Set up right there.
Well, Chris, why don't you tell us about this beer that you made for the festival?
Okay, so one of our regulars, his name's Doug, came in and said he had an idea for a beer. And I'm sure you guys hear a lot of people come in and probably say they have ideas for beers and stuff. But great guy, and he said, you know what? I've never seen a smoked IPA. Do you think you could brew one? And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. Instead of just doing a regular IPA, I thought it'd be more fun. Let's triple it. So make a triple. So we used malt smoked with cherry wood, and then it's got a little bit of crystal malt and mostly pale malt in the malt bill. And the hops are Amarillo, Citra, Simcoe, and a little bit of Chinook. And I just think it's got a nice subtle hint of the smoke to it.
Right.
The hops pop as well. And for 10.25%, it goes down sneakily easy.
It does.
Now, Brian, this seems like your cup of tea. What do you think of this?
I like it. I think the smoke is nice and subtle. I love smoked beers. I love IPAs, so it would have been a winner in my book either way. But I think it's really well done.
Yeah, it's tasty, and I'm not huge on the more bitter IPAs like triples or smoke, but like you said, it's balanced. It's a nice subtle hint there.
Just
tasty stuff. Yeah.
Nice bit of smoke and that rich maltiness in there. It's nice. It's
good stuff.
Nice. Yep.
Well, Chris, you had mentioned to us that you got to Savannah by way of Atlanta and Charleston.
That's correct.
So can you tell us a little bit about kind of your journey? How did you end up opening a brewery?
Certainly. I'll do a very quick version of it. Grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, along with my brother. We're the co-founders of Coastal Empire Beer Company. Both went to college at Charleston. Graduated in 93. Had a friend that was actually in Charleston because of Hugo, the big hurricane we had. He was Mexican, doing some painting there. And his brother owned a tortilla factory in Atlanta called Ole Mexican Foods. When I graduated college, they made me an offer. So I packed up, moved there, worked for a company for them for 5 years. It was really wild because I was a business and a Spanish major at the College of Charleston. So I wanted to be able to continue to use Spanish. And when I was there, 99% spoke Spanish. I was the only Anglo there.
All right.
When I left, there was a few more. The company really did well and has grown tremendously. But it was fun times, learned a lot. From there, I went to U.S. Foods for several years. But living in Atlanta, when I first got there right out of school, it was really exciting. Never been to a big city before. But each year for me, growing up on the coast, I just didn't like it more and more. And so I just made a decision to move to the coast. So my wife and I packed up, moved to Savannah, and then my brother kind of followed me. He worked in Charleston for a while, got a job with Golder Associates in Atlanta with an environmental company. He is a hydrogeologist, and basically his wife made the mistake of telling him she would move to the coast, but she didn't think she'd ever get anything offered there. And lo and behold, about a year later, her office said, you know what, we need someone on the coast. So she came home and said, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm not happy about it.
See, I made the promise, though. I'll stick to it, huh?
Exactly. So he immediately took a job with the Army Corps of Engineers here in Savannah, moved down, but really quickly he decided he did not like working for the public sector. He moved from the private to the public, and he was used to being rewarded for his performance, and it was more longevity there than it was performance. And so he goes, you know what, I've always wanted to open a brewery, and actually that's how he got started brewing. My sister and I gave him a homebrew kit when he graduated college. So he's like, I'm going to start a brewery. Now he tells me this about 4 a.m. at a friend's house. And after we had a few beers, 4
a.m. at a friend's,
Yeah,
there were some beers involved there, right? Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, man, that sounds great. You know, let me know if you're really serious. And then the next day, there's a knock on the door. I'm kind of groggy, but he's like, hey man, I need a check. I'm like, for what? You all right? The family all right? He goes, no, remember you said you're going to help me.
You're going to get
it. And I was like, oh, blank.
Yeah. So you started writing the check. He's like, another zero. Another zero.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't have that many zeros, man. But there we go. We got started. So that's kind of how we came together.
Very cool. No.
So I have a question. You started out doing contract brewing, and I was wondering if you were starting over again today with the differences in the laws where everything's set up, would you still have gone the contracting route to start, or would you have gone directly into your own brewery?
Well, with the laws today, we would have definitely done it differently. We would have started a lot smaller.
Oh.
At the time, you know, basically you had to get a big brew house put together, or, you know, not a huge one, but something that could, because you had to go straight to distribution. You couldn't build a name through your tap room. We've worked hard, the Georgia Brewers Guild, of getting the laws changed here. And but whenever anyone asks me, you know, I want to get started in brewing, I'm like, start small, build your name, and if the liquid's good, you'll grow. But definitely we would have changed that for sure.
Okay. You know, I see that now that we talk about that, Brian. You know, of course, we've talked about Georgia beer laws a lot on the show, but there's not the need to contract as much as there may have been, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Because you can open a small taproom brew. You could
and make money
if you want to do a 1-barrel brew house and you want to put a few beers out, you can do that now.
Exactly.
You know, that's
exactly.
viable. There's no way when you had to distribute that you could have come anywhere close to making any money with, you know, a 1-barrel, 3-barrel.
Right.
You had to have volume.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Chris, talking about the changing in the craft beer industry, you know, how things are growing, and you can do this small tap room and kind of make a name for yourself. What are you doing with Coastal Empire to kind of differentiate and set yourself apart from the crowd?
Well, one thing, we picked a location that's in the middle of nowhere, and so it's
there you go. Good
a lot
choice.
of people are a little sketched out when they come here. It's not like the West Coast where every place is in an industrial district. A lot of the breweries are on the other side of town, but we have 16 taps. I think right now as one of, except for Moon River, that's going to be the most in town or close to the most. We do like 9 or 8 small batch, and then 8 of our core and seasonal beers. We're getting really experimental. We've been doing a lot of milkshake IPAs here. We've done a lot of fruited IPAs, and just try to experiment. We've got a pumpkin spice milk porter on right now, but we really try to rotate. And a lot of people really, when they come in here, we don't do all IPAs. And like, I just brewed my first Munich Dunkel, and that thing went really quick, and, you know, people liked a dark lager. So we tried to give them a a wide variety of stuff to try when we're here.
Sure. You know, and you're responsible for a lot of those small batch beers, correct?
That's correct.
So do you have to, what's the schedule like to keep, like you said, about half of your tap list usually is these small batches. Do you have to brew around the clock to keep that rolling? Or?
Yeah, usually I'm brewing 2 to 3 times a week to keep up with what they're doing in the tap room.
Okay, so it's not like a 24-hour clock or whatever to keep
My
on
wife
with
would
that.
not allow that.
Yeah. Right. Got to be some time for the family, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And Kevin does help out. He's our head brewer, and he manages the large scale for us. But every once in a while, he'll jump in and brew a few small batches to help me out as well.
And then you have some just fly out of there and make you harder, like your Dole Whip. You said you put your pineapple milkshake out there, it flies off.
Yeah,
the
every time we post, people are like, is that going to be around? And we're like, get down here now because it's not going to last very
long. Get it while you can. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, you're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take another break, but we'll be back soon to talk more with Chris from Coastal Empire.
Looking for a great way to promote your business? CedarStream has what you need. For apparel, stickers, signs, and banners, we're your one-stop shop. There are never any art fees or setup fees. And if you need your items quickly, there's no additional charge for rush orders. Whether you own a brewery, bar, bottle shop, or other business, CedarStream is ready to serve you. Visit cedarstream.com for more info or call 800-686-7488 for immediate assistance. CedarStream. We print America.
It's Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock and Alpharetta are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks daily, so that way you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and coming soon to Duluth in 2018. Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Shake it back! Woo!
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to our newest radio affiliate, KENN 1390 AM and 92.1 FM in Farmington, New Mexico. Catch Beer Guys Radio on KENN every Saturday at 10 p.m. Mountain. We're talking with Chris Haborak from Coastal Empire.
Chris, we're sipping some more of your beers here. We're going through the whole lot. Every tap on the wall we're going to drink.
All right, we can do it. Right now, I think I brought out for you guys Bramble on Blonde, which is a blonde ale with blackberries and cranberries. And we've got a pumpkin spice milk porter and then a mango IPA.
Very good. I'm enjoying the Bramble on Blonde. I like this. It's got a very fruity, jammy, fruity flavor to the fruits in it, and it's quite nice. So, Sam, you actually got a full pour of this one, didn't you?
Yes, he did.
He did. He's enjoying that right now. This is really tasty. What are you drinking, Brian?
I've got that Coco Pina Goza in the rum barrels. And I mean, I like Coco Pina Goza to begin with, but the rum barrel's really nice. So,
a whole nother level.
A whole nother level. You know what? You won an award for the Coco Pina Goza. How much more of an award would you have won for the rum barrel version, I wonder?
Well, actually, we did enter that one as well. And it did pass on through the first stage at the GABF. We got our notes back. And Kevin reached out to the administrator because we try to get feedback because we had 3 of our 4 beers go through to the next level. And we were fortunate enough to win a silver for Coco Pina. This one did fantastic. They said they thought it was in the wrong categories.
That'll get you, man.
That'll get you.
So they said if it had been on the fruited sour barrel aged category, it might have done a little bit better. But no, we were really, really pleased and be able to, with as many breweries are out today and how much great beer is out there, to bring home a medal is just phenomenal. And we're really excited about it.
Yeah, the competition out there is crazy. I mean, every year, the stats of how many are entering and the categories. It's fun to see what goes on out there.
Oh, yeah, and they keep cutting you down. I think the year before we were able to enter 5 beers. This year we can only enter 4 beers. So it's tough. It really is.
We talking about the categories, that's something that I know a lot of brewers struggle with, especially if you do unique beers, non-standard beers. We were talking with a couple weeks ago Todd Boera from Fontaflora Brewery in Asheville, and a lot of his most popular beers are beets and lime and sagebrush and who knows what else is in those things.
That watermelon one, the rind one. I can't stop thinking about that.
Fantastic.
Mixed fermentation goza with the pumpkin that tastes like a rind. Oh my God, so good.
But if you get out there a little bit, it can be hard to decide because there could be a couple different categories that might fit.
And when we won this medal, a lot of people were like, "Field beer? What in the heck is a field beer?" And basically, the guidelines say any beer made with coconut belongs in the field beer category.
That's right.
And
That's right.
That's how we picked that category.
So what would you say your most award-winning beer is? Because we looked through a lot of different years' worth of awards, and there's just a ton of them. So I think a few of them really stand out over the years for have won the most awards. Which one is the most?
So as far as the most medals, that would be barrel-aged Savannah Brown. I think that's actually got four or five medals at the U.S. Open.
Wow.
Coco Pina's got 2. It won a silver at the Best of Craft Beer Awards, and then just this year won a silver at the Great American Beer Festival. Dawn Patrol has got a bronze at the Great American Beer Festival, and that's a beer we've actually retired because we had got a cease and desist on the name.
Oh, really?
And so, but it also won, I think, a bronze at the U.S. Open as well. And we will bring eventually that beer back. It's a Mole Stout, high ABV. It's 10%, phenomenal beer. But we're going to have a little fun with it when we do bring it back. We're going to have our fans have some say in the name.
Pick the name.
Yeah.
We'll pick it for you. Just let us have it. Brian's great. Yeah. Brian's great with
Stouty McStout face. Is
there
that
you
going
go.
to be
there? It's taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mole McMole face.
Oh,
so what was the cease and desist from with Dawn Patrol?
It was from Lost Rhino.
Lost Rhino.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I think they have, I think it was a session IPA.
All right.
And they told us that they did not want our beer to have a negative effect on their beer. We're like, really? Okay. It's got a GABF. You know, it's got a GABF and a U.S. Open, but sure, guys, you know, whatever. We'll go ahead and stop using the name.
You know, there's a lot more of that lately. Like we're talking about, because the space is getting more crowded, we're seeing so many more that are running into each other trying to find a name that works out. We know a couple breweries that started and actually did some legal agreements up front because right out of the gate they were running into some of that. And we found a website, I won't say too much about it because we haven't addressed it yet, but there's someone else that has a logo very similar to ours. And we have our trademark pending, and we did say, hey guys, just an FYI.
Oh yeah.
There's this. They didn't care. You know, we don't want to have to address it, but you know, we're not as big as these breweries trying to find all these names and stuff.
Let this be a warning to that person if they're listening.
Yes, now you know we mean business. So, but it is tough to come up with a name.
It is.
That's not used.
And actually, the first people to use that name was Pizza Port out there in California.
Okay.
So good luck telling them not to use the name.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't want Pizza Port to have a negative impact
right.
on their beer.
Exactly.
So you did. You got a gold for a collab with the Burnt Hickory Brewery, March to the Sea. I'm wondering if that's going to see a return at some point. It's a barley wine, right?
Yeah, it was a barley wine, big barley wine, American barley wine. Actually, we still have just a few bottles left in our tap room, but it was a phenomenal beer. We've gotten really close with those guys, and you couldn't have two breweries more different from each other. My brother and I are seen as just really easy-going, laid-back, and then with Scott Hadeen, who's a little vocal, very crazy.
I haven't met him. I heard he's okay.
He'll definitely let you. Every time we see him and we joke about it, he's always telling us, well, you ever think about doing this or changing this with your beer?
Scott tells you? I can't see Scott.
I can't imagine that.
Never.
Scott is actually the only person that is banned from the Beer Guys radio studio. He's never allowed back. So
Tim invited him back several times to talk, and I think every time he's like, no more. He's banned. He's banned.
No more. No, Scott is actually a good friend.
Yeah.
We know him well.
Yeah, we love Scott. He is so much fun. And he's whenever he comes to the Savannah, which is not often, we definitely have a good time. But we've both talked and said, yes, we want to do another rematch or whatever. Not rematch. But,
now, I have a question for you about March to the Sea. Did you get any grief for the name?
We did. There were a few people out there like, I can't believe you used that name. And then Scott's like, really? Over 100 years?
Right.
And you're mad about that? Okay, whatever.
And
some people don't let that go. You know, the South gets made fun of for Civil War warship and that. It's earned because we've got some people here that still hold on to that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
yeah,
now,
for sure.
on the flip side of that, there's some really interesting historical sites in that there.
Sure.
And I heard someone make a joke one time. They visited Atlanta, and someone's like, man, everything here looks so nice and new. They're like, yeah, that's because it all got burnt to the ground 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So was Scott a destructive force as he marched to the sea to brew this with you? I'm curious about that because I could see that being, accurate to that situation.
Oh, yeah. He and Will was with him at the time.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And, so those guys, they burnt their way all the way down.
All the way down.
All the way down.
Yeah.
And then they spared Savannah.
That's nice of them.
Tradition.
Talking of Savannah and brewing and all that, one thing we brushed on a little bit earlier is ghost. There's a lot of ghost in that, and we know of at least one brewery here that is haunted.
There's a very famous one that is haunted.
Yeah.
And then, now, I can't speak for myself. I haven't experienced this, but this is an old building. I think it's from the 60s. Was a Pepsi bottling plant. From there, it was Nettles Refrigeration. After that, the current owner is McCarthy and Sons. But my brother swears he was here very early one morning, and he came into this very room here and started hearing voices. And so he looked outside. There was no one there. Walked to the other side. Saw no one out that way. And his wife is like a guru for that kind of stuff. She watched all those ghost chasers and stuff like that. So he called her up, and she got super excited about that.
Okay. How late was he drinking the night before?
Knowing Kevin, he might have woke up here, grabbed a beer, and
heard the voices.
Well, maybe they
brewing.
were telling him what beer to brew that
maybe
day.
that helpful ghost. They don't have to be bad, do
exactly.
they?
Casper, the helpful
telling him about
brewing
hop
ghost.
additions and all kinds of stuff.
Dry hops.
Rum barrel.
There you go. This ghost has great brewing decisions. So, well, we need to take a break. We're going to talk more about ghosts, and we'll be back in just a second to talk with Chris from Coastal Empire.
Are you thinking about opening a brewery in the Atlanta area? If so, take a look at the Park at Georgetown. This unique community will feature a collection of restaurants, as well as a craft brewery within the new J.W. Holmes luxury development, Dunwoody Green. Conveniently located less than half a mile from I-285, this enclave of restaurants will be the gathering place in Dunwoody. Krim & Associates, the developer of the Park at Georgetown, wants to talk to you. For more information, call Todd Semrau at 404-226-6526.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Your revolution is over, Mr. Lebowski. Condolences, the bum's lost.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons can get some cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes. Now back to our conversation with Chris Haborak from Coastal Empire.
Brian, I think you actually said a new reward we're thinking of adding to Patreon is for a certain support level, you actually come clean a member's house once per week, right?
No, I don't believe I said that. Did I say that last night?
I did hear that last night.
I thought so.
I can't
yeah,
confirm.
That's 2 against 1.
I drank a lot of sparkly beer last night.
You did.
Glitter
Okay.
beer? Yeah.
So we'll talk about that a little more going forward. We'll get it figured out.
We'll clean for glitter beer.
Okay. Well, Chris, we were talking to you about small batches. No glitter, though. No glitter here
We
yet.
have not done any glitter yet.
And you said your small batch system is a half barrel.
That's
so
correct.
15 and a half gallons, somewhere in there. So
Yes. Actually, I brewed yesterday, and it was a 23-gallon batch, so a little bit more than a half barrel.
Well, that's close to like a large homebrew system on that, something like that. What are your tips for someone who's homebrewing, maybe either just starting out or maybe if they've got a little experience? What are some of your tips for kind of fine-tuning your process there?
Well, the first tip is cleanliness. Just make sure everything's clean, because you could do everything right, and then you have one vessel that's a little bit dirty or contaminated, and it just ruins the whole batch. And then I would work on consistency. Stick to your plan, have your recipe, and don't say, I think I'm going to add this or that, because then you may forget. So make sure you're taking really good notes, but stick to your plan and brew the recipe. And then if you want to refine it, do your homework ahead of time. So the next time, and make sure you take the notes and the tasting notes, and so you can get something consistent.
And that can be hard not to do with the tweaks in that, especially as a home brewer getting creative. Let's say you did brew a beer once and you're like, hey, this is pretty good. And you brew it again, maybe you make a tweak and you think, this would be good with this hop instead of this hop, or this would be good with that flavor. If you change 2 or 3 or 4 things and it's totally not right, you have more variables to try and figure out if you try and backtrack to figure it out.
Exactly.
So if you do have a beer that's pretty good and you want to change it, don't change multiple things on that next batch.
That's
kind of
correct.
Tune in from there.
Kind of inch by inch, and then you can make the determination from there.
From another angle, the notes are very important because invariably something will go differently than you expect on brew day. You'll look at your hops and like, oh my goodness, my alpha acids are wrong. You should write that down so if this batch is better or worse. You have an idea of where to go back to find out what the source of that is.
And ideally checking your alpha acids up front, because you'll have to tweak some to get the numbers, where you want them there. But you're right, so many things can be a variable, and at least you can make note of, see where things change there to going forward. And I think that's really something that we hear it from a lot of brewers. Be consistent, be clean, do this and that. But the reason is there's also a lot of people that don't do that. We brewed with a guy that really just eyeballed every single thing he did. That's about 3 gallons of water. That's about an ounce of hops. So,
and I guess when you go to taste it, kind of tastes
that's
like
about beer.
That's about what it tasted like last time.
So if somebody was coming to the brewery, I'm seeing we have a lot of tasting glasses in front of us. What's the ideal flight for them to get a really good concept of what Coastal Empire is all about? What beer should they get tasters of or a flight of?
Well, I would say get multiple flights. That way, with the 16 taps, you can experience, because we do a lot of different stuff. We have 8 taps dedicated to our seasonals and our core beers, and then we have 8 taps for our small batch. And I would try a little bit of everything because we try and do our best to put the best beer out there, and we have a lot of stuff that we can do on a small system that may not work on a bigger system, may be too expensive, but just go through the tap list, 16 taps, and have fun.
Drink them all.
What was the little joint we went to down in Florida? CUNY Brewing? CUNY?
Oh, yeah, CUNY. CUNY,
yeah. But they had a flight board, Chris,
thing,
that was, there had to be 12 or 15 beers on there. But it was just basically it was basically the whole tap room flight.
Well, you know what? My brother Kevin is very industrious. He got the genes in the family where he can build stuff, and it actually it's the way it should be. I am totally opposite. If I'm going to build it, you're taking your life into your own hands.
Yeah, no telling. This flight board's going to fall apart.
Right,
Chris built that.
So I think the answer is a Ferris wheel of beer where you rotate it around. They all stay upright because you've just rotated around.
Something Brian actually brought this up as we're driving around. We see, and this is probably an absolutely stupid question, but we're going to ask it anyhow.
Sure.
We see the Spanish moss hanging off all the trees, and we know Irish moss is used as a fining agent.
Right.
Is there any brewing application for Spanish moss?
If you would like red bugs in your beer, then maybe. But maybe? I would actually stay away from the Spanish moss.
How do they taste?
You did moss. Yeah.
Are they delicious? Red bugs?
I've never tried them, and I don't think I'm going to. And if they infest you, you will have tiny little bites all over your body.
I told you.
Well,
okay. All right, fair enough.
I think that's a no.
Okay.
If I was to read into that, that's going to be a no for
I'll
me,
give
dog.
you a second one. Yeah.
I was going to put some in my beard and be like the old man of the forest.
Not in the car. I'm not driving you back to Atlanta with that.
So changing it to something else, all equally zany, you had a beer on called Pickle Rick, and it's fun in terms of pop culture, but it also seems like a very polarizing concept for a beer. Can you tell us about that, and how was that received, and also will it return?
It will return. I'll go ahead. We've actually brought it back once, but we will bring it back again. And actually, so we're in Florida as well, and I was visiting a brewery in Tallahassee called Grasslands, and they had a dill pickle goza on, which I fell in love with. Thing was delicious, and I couldn't stop thinking about that beer. We all have those beers where like, God, how am I going to get that again? And I waited, and I don't get to Tallahassee that much. So finally I talked to Kevin. He says, I'll brew that beer. And he goes, but I'm going to name it. I said, what are you going to name it? He said, I'm going to name it Pickle Rick. I'm like, Pickle Rick?
Pickle Rick, where are you getting this from?
Exactly.
Catch up, Chris. Catch up.
Yeah, he's like, you need to Google this show, Rick and Morty.
I was going to say, those who don't know Rick and Morty is the
Yes,
reference.
yeah. So I did. Watched about a half episode, and I was like, really?
I'm Pickle Rick.
But then we actually had a Pickle Rick trivia night here, and they came out of the woodwork. It was crazy, but really fun beer, and it was well received.
Good. So how pickly was it? Was it like pickle juice or lighter?
It was big on the dill. It didn't really have the vinegar to it that some of the sours do. But it was definitely dill pickle.
I'm guessing a little the salt.
We had it. Brian and I had it at the
ACAT, I think, right?
No, not ACAT. The other event, Ogle.
It was at
City Brew Fest.
Yeah, it was at Classic City.
Classic City.
Yeah. It was in a cask up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Now, did you use Sriracha Ace hops in that? Because I know they can give a.
You know what? Very good. We did. Yeah.
There you go.
Nice.
Gold star for you.
There you go. I'm going to put that.
I don't recall. Was it kind of greenish in color?
No, it was one of the first ones we had before they opened. You're like, you got to try this. I was like, yes, Pickle Rick, let's do this.
Let's see.
Yeah, and then it kind of went downhill from there. But yes, that was one of the first ones we had.
Because I could see it if the dill, if it wasn't like pickle juice but kind of toned down goza with those dill and pickly flavors, I could see that being tasty.
It went fast.
If you like those flavors, I could see that being tasty.
It was a novelty, so it went fast that day.
Okay, all right. Any other crazy cartoon-based beers in the works?
I don't know about cartoon-based. You know, we have a Claxton Fruit Company up the road, and I've been talking to Kevin about doing fruitcake beer.
Oh,
and just like Coco Pina, he keeps shutting me down. Like, I am not doing that. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to have to figure this one out on my own. So stay tuned.
In keeping with tradition, it'll happen, and then you'll win an award with it. I'm thinking that's how it's going to work.
Yes.
That would be
there
phenomenal.
you go. Yeah. Do what you got to do. Well, Chris, we're getting close to the end here, but anything else you would like folks to know about? Oh, Epcot. Want to tell us about that? You were on a festival down there, right?
Yeah, so we have this little beer called Coco Pina. It's done really well for us.
Yeah.
And this past year, we got a call from our distributor in Florida. They're like, can you make this much Coco Pina starting in February? Epcot they have a Flowers and Garden Festival, and they want to put you on their Pineapple Promenade. We made sure we made it. It did really, really well. We're hoping they'll bring it back again. But we got tons of people. It was such a great venue because so many people go through there. Yeah. It brought a lot of new people that didn't know about us and reached out and said, how can I find this beer?
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And Chris, if folks want to keep up with what is happening here at Coastal Empire, what is the best way for them to do that?
Follow us on social media at Facebook as well as Instagram. We do our posts basically through those two venues, and then at www.coastalempirebeer.com. That's
Fantastic.
our website. Now, I will say we need some work on that website, and we're going to do that, but bear with us.
But it's there, and it'll give you what you need to know, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks again for coming down to Savannah to visit us.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show from Savannah, Georgia. Coming up next week, Brian, we're going to have a show.
Yes,
show. Yes, we're still, due to some scheduling conflicts, we're in flux a little bit here, but there will be a show.
Mystery guest.
The mystery guest next week. So for more great craft beer information, please follow us online. We're Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.
The Beer Guys Radio Show on the Beer Guys Radio Network. BeerGuysRadio.com.